And we are live.
Thank you. Welcome. This is the Vermont Senate's Institutions Committee. We're meeting on January 26th. The chair, Senator Benning, is occupied elsewhere. So as vice chair, I'll be conducting the meeting. I'm Dick McCormick, I represent Windsor County. We have as well Senator Dick Mazza, Richard Mazza from Grand Isle. We have Russ Ingalls from Franklin, and we have from Essex Orleans, and Corey Parent from Franklin. And we're dealing this morning with the Budget Adjustment Act and the Capital Act. So who are we hearing from first? Alex?
We've got Steve Howard on the agenda for the first step.
Okay, and he's here. We'll welcome Steve Howard. And for the record, anyone who speaks, you probably know this, but let me just say, state your name and affiliation. That's for history as well as for our benefit. And also, Senator Benning would be quite offended if I didn't mention, because the public is listening, please avoid obscure language and please avoid indelicate language. Okay, Mr. Howard.
Good morning, Senator.
No, we don't have any money. We don't have any money.
Senator, I think you know where the money is hidden.
Yeah.
If you don't by now.
Every time I see him, he wants money.
Senator Maz and I share a background in the grocery business, so we know what it's like. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I just want to start my testimony.
I'm sorry, Steve, you're breaking up.
Ooh. I don't know what to
Not
do.
here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be you, Senator McCormick.
Is that just me, or is everybody having
It's
trouble?
you.
That's just you.
I
think
hate
it's
to
you,
use
Senator.
this line,
You're
but
freezing.
I think I would say it's me, not you, Senator, but I don't think I can say that this time.
No.
Alex, what's going on electronically?
I'm not sure I have an answer on that. It seems like you're back in now and your connection seems good. I'll try to monitor it. I don't know if there's a whole lot I can do on my end if it's your connection though.
Oh, was the problem just on my end?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone
That's
else.
what
Everyone
it
else could
appears.
hear, Steve? Oh, okay. I sound okay to myself. How am I to you now?
You seem good now. You're coming in clear and your
Okay.
video is not lagging.
All right, let's try it again. Why don't you start at the top?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. For the record, I'm Steve Howard. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont State Employees Association, and I am here to testify in support of the administration's request in the budget adjustment, the little over $4.5 million, I think is what's in the adjustment for funding of the recruitment and retention bonus that was agreed to between Governor Scott and the members of the VSEA. I just want to give you a little bit of flavor of why this down payment on a very serious problem is necessary. And this is really a down payment. We are going to have to invest very heavily in the personnel and the staffing of the Corrections Department if we want to ever stabilize a system that is in crisis at the moment. In 2017, the Department of Corrections had 19,900 hours of 909 hours of overtime. So 2017, 19,909 hours. In FY21, their total overtime was 31,528. So in that period of time, we have seen a massive increase in the amount of overtime that our members are working, and this is mandatory overtime. That is why people are leaving the Department of Corrections for the most part. There's many other reasons, but that is the most significant one. They are exhausted. They can't work that much mandatory overtime. Their spouses and families are pressuring them not to continue to be away from them for so much of the time. So this recruitment and retention bonus is really about stopping the bleeding that was occurring before the bonus went into effect. And it is a really good agreement. It is a good start, a good down payment on the kind of investment the state's going to have to make to stabilize its corrections system. I just want to also offer just a little bit of additional research that VSEA has done. In FY21, there was a 44% turnover in the CO1 position, and that is after 3 years of turnover at 30% in that position. And that is an entry-level security position. It's the most stressed position in the Department of Corrections. It's the one where we have the greatest challenge. So we train people, we do on-the-job training, we send them through the academy. That cost us, somewhere around $10,000 a pop. We get them on the job and then they leave in droves. And so that just means that our members have to work excessive amounts of mandatory overtime in order to keep the facility secure and safe and to keep the public safe. So I just would testify in support of this agreement. We were pleased to get this agreement with Governor Scott, and we look forward to discussing a much more significant investment in the stabilization of the Department of Corrections in the future.
So you're not here testifying that it's not enough and you want more. You like what's there in the bill already.
That's what I told you.
That's an easy afternoon. Let me explore something. Senator Mazza will remember this. We've had times when the complaint worked the other way, that employees were taking too much overtime, that they wanted it because of the extra pay,
Right.
and that people were sort of boosting their record for retirement and so on. And that, but now you're talking about mandatory overtime that the employee really doesn't want.
Right. I mean, we've gone from a situation where we had normal levels of overtime that I think most of our members expected, probably in 2017, the 19,000 hours was probably considered normal. But in the last few years, we've had excessive amounts of mandatory overtime because of short staffing. And that has really, I think, put a great deal of pressure on the stability of the correction system.
How much of that is COVID, the shortage?
Well, the numbers start to increase if you look at the four-year report. These numbers come from the Department of Human Resources and their workforce report. It increases pretty steadily. There's a little dip from 2017 to 2018, and then from 2019, 2020, FY21, we go from 23,000. 27,000, 31,000. So you see this ever increasing number of hours of overtime. Some of that's overtime people want to work, but the vast majority of it is mandatory overtime that is in some amounts is expected, but now it's excessive, and it's because of the lack of it's because of that churn that I talked about, a 44% turnover in the CO1 positions. I believe there's system-wide, there's about 200 vacant positions in the Department of Corrections. If the commissioner's testimony yesterday in Senate Gov Ops is accurate, that's not just CO1s, but the position that has probably the most significant turnover and vacancy is CO1, which is the entry-level position.
Okay, wait, excessive. Give me numbers. What do you mean by excessive?
Well, 31,000 hours of overtime is from our view of overtime is excessive in general, but we have people who are working 5 or 6 days. Sometimes they're working 16-hour shifts every single day. It's really exhausting, and it's not abnormal. And we have one facility that is in emergency status where they're working 12-hour shifts. But in the other facilities across the state, 16-hour shifts are not uncommon. So you go into work, you think you're going to work your 8-hour shift and think you're going to be able to go home, and you really can't go home. The phenomenon of our members sleeping in their cars because they don't have time to drive home is pretty significant, and at Springfield especially, where they have pretty difficult employment numbers or vacancy numbers. People reporting that they're falling asleep driving to and from work. It's really a significant safety issue. And it's also a safety issue in the facility. And I remind people that corrections officers, they're not just there to keep the public safe. That is part of their role. They don't just keep each other safe, but they're often there to protect offenders from each other. And so it creates a very dangerous situation when you have people who are exhausted and they're on their 15th and a half hour of what is already a very difficult job.
So,
Yeah, everybody occasionally gets a 16-hour shift, but then you sleep late the next morning.
so,
You know,
Right,
one-
not in
one-
DOC.
so I want to clarify something. So, Steve, you said 31,000 hours of overtime was worked in the year.
In FY21, the number is 31,528 according to
Right. So the average full-time employee is what, 2,000 hours, 2080 is usually the number. So you're talking, I mean, if you just did those numbers, you need 15 employees to make up that difference. I mean, it sounds like a lot of hours overtime when you say 31,000, but across that whole system, how many hours is that per employee or per CO? And what are we really talking about?
I don't have that information. It is information we've requested from the Department of Human Resources.
Well, how many COs are there? We can do it. It's 31,500. How many COs do we have?
Matt may be able to tell you the exact number.
Apologies, I was pulling that up just now. Not finding the exact document, but I can go from memory on this in terms, it won't be specifics. We have both CO1 and CO2 positions, correctional officer 1s and 2s. Between those two job classes, there are approximately 500 total positions allocated to the department. But as I've said, I'm looking for the document that has the very, very specific detail. I may not be able to pull it up at the moment.
Right. I mean, if you divide all that overtime by 500, it's 63 hours a year. I guess how we define excessive is, to Senator McCormick's point. I wouldn't think an hour or two a week. I mean, I get they've had their shifts, but if it was spread out, you're talking an hour or two a week of overtime among those positions.
I don't think it's as easy as that. It depends on what the condition of what the situation is in each facility. And so it's, I mean, 63 hours of overtime on an annual basis, just based on I don't have the numbers in front of me, but based on the conversations I have had with people who have worked that in a pay period or close to that in a pay period, it would be hard to just do the math the way you're doing it. It's not evenly distributed.
Other committee members? Okay, let me Senator Mazza.
Is there any firms out there that we could bring in help from outside the state, fill in the gap?
No, actually, the previous commission had suggested something like that, something similar to travel, like traveling nurses. And that doesn't really exist, and it really can't exist because in this system, unlike a hospital, there's such a chain of command, and also the policies are so in depth that it would be really hard to staff with an outside firm. You could do something which we have encouraged the department to do, which is to provide incentives to retired correctional officers who are familiar with the operation of the Vermont correctional system, to try to get them to come back to work some hours. And I think they've had some success. I think Northwest has had more success than other facilities.
What's their average pay? What's their average pay for the employee? What's their average salary?
Matt would have to answer that question. I don't know that.
Do you know what the average salary is?
I don't know the average salary, and not in front of me anyway. I know the starting salary in the mid-range. It would take a little bit to get average. If we're talking about
Or what's the
base
starting salary? What's the starting salary?
starting is just under $20 per hour. That's a step one for a brand new hire to the CO1 position.
Plus benefits.
Plus benefits, right?
It's
And after 6
$19.
months,
I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, after 6 months, there's a end of probation where they move to step 2. So there's a, an additional per hour bump
Oh.
there as well, and then of course the steps like all other state employees.
Getting
Just
getting
under
good
starting.
getting good paychecks then. Very good. Yeah.
The starting pay is actually, it's $19.42 an hour, and you do step up after your probationary period. But at that level, we're not filling positions. We have massive vacancies, massive amount of overtime to cover those vacancies, and a system that is crumbling. So at that level, we are not able to staff the system. So we are going to have to. One of the things I suggested in my testimony yesterday across the hall from you is that the administration consider a market factor adjustment, which is a provision that they have in the contract now that would allow them to pay above the negotiated salary levels in order to meet the market. We've done that with nurses. Every time we do it, we need to do it again because the private sector raises their wages, but we are not competitive, and we are not filling positions and not keeping people in positions at the rate of pay that we have now.
Steve, your testimony yesterday made the news, and you said it was quite startling. You said compared the situation to a 5-alarm fire.
Mhm.
That's an emergency. That's something that's got to be dealt with immediately. How long is it going to take? I mean, you got to train people, right? I mean, how long, if we were to actually find people to take these positions, how long would it take to get them into the facilities?
Yeah, that's probably a question for the administration. They would likely have to go through, unless they're already correctional officers, they would still have to go through an academy, which I think it changes. It was 6 weeks, but then it was shortened, and it's gone back up and down in length. But let's say it's anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on how rapidly you deploy them. And that's one of the reasons why we thought really bringing in folks who had already worked and gone through the academy, who had been temporary employees, or who have left the employment of corrections. We have a lot. There's a number of state employees working in AOT, working in other agencies, who were correctional officers, and who could be incentivized to come back to cover in this crisis. And it really is a crisis. We're really at a point where the system is in serious peril, and it is going to require a crisis approach until we can get to a more stable point and we can make some more significant reforms that make people want to work there and want to stay there.
I'm surprised that Senator Mazza hasn't already mentioned this, but this committee's jurisdiction is bricks and mortar. And you're really talking about program here. Are you talking to judiciary?
We are, and we're talking to all of the committees of jurisdiction, but as long as I'm in the committee on bricks and mortar, one of the things that, and I haven't had a chance to review the governor's actual capital proposal, his capital bill, but one of the things that we have been pushing with the administration that started with a CO1 in the Springfield facility, Shawanda Hill, is to really a petition drive that she began to air condition the correctional facilities. And it spread really rapidly from Springfield throughout the entire system, because other than a few of the facilities, those buildings are not air conditioned. They are brick buildings. And in the summer, during these excessively hot summer days, those buildings can be anywhere from 90 to 100 degrees. And it's not conducive to safe management of the population, which is not happy about those conditions. It's not a healthy place to work. But what one of the CEOs said to me when they were talking about this is, it's just a symbol of how we feel we're treated here. It is so excessively hot. So we pushed, and I do have a text from Al Cormier that the administration does support putting air conditioning in the correctional facilities. I don't know if they actually follow through on what they said they were going to do and put that actual proposal in the budget, but we will be asking the House and Senate Institutions Committees to keep that commitment and to fund air conditioning in those buildings, just on a basic human level, for both our members and the offenders they are working with.
Thanks. Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Steve Howard.
Thank you.
Good seeing you again.
Nice to see you.
Alex, who do we have next?
Well, we have Matt on the agenda to speak on anything else related to this matter, and then we have a little break until 2:15 if we're wrapping up this.
Okay, Matt Agustino.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, Matt Agustino, Interim Deputy Commissioner for Corrections. So we were in, I believe, last week to speak about our budget adjustment. There's, unless the committee has questions, nothing to add in terms of the presentation that was provided last week. I can go through it again if you'd like, quickly, or.
Well, despite the fact that everyone on the committee took meticulous notes and has studied them carefully, why don't you just do a review? Okay.
Absolutely. The budget adjustment is pretty straightforward. There's 4 total items. 2 of them are actually the same thing, just a net neutral transfer from one appropriation to another. Quickly, we had some carry forward funds that are justice reinvestment related. So the technical adjustment was to move them from our out of state appropriation where those savings were incurred in FY21 and move them into correctional services, developing contracts and grants, recommendations for community-based programs that align with the language for those justice reinvestment funds. And then the other 2 items, largely, as Steve mentioned, the DOC incentives, the retention bonuses, shift bonuses, new hire and academy progression bonuses that are going to DOC staff. This was a $4.9 million line item. In addition to money that was carried forward in FY21, this $4.9 million will fully fund these incentives through fiscal year 22 and the side letter agreement with the VSEA and the state. And then there's an offsetting savings of $400,000 in training dollars that we don't anticipate will be used fully this year due to a number of things. Staffing shortages is one of the large factors in that. So those items combined net to a total of just over $4.5 million in general fund for the DOC budget adjustment.
Committee. Okay, thank you. No controversies there, really, then. You're not coming in waving an emergency flag and saying.
Not today, no, sir.
Okay, okay, good. Are we ready for a break?
Are the other people ready? No?
Alex?
Secretary Clouser is going to be here at 2:15.
Okay.
I can let them know we're running a little ahead of time, but I think that she has a commitment until 2:15.
Yeah, well then, we can all find some way to use that time. Okay, we'll be back at 2:15.
Thank you. I'm going to take us off the live stream for now.